Dear students, welcome to yet another lecture of your preparatory series of English for CLAT examination. And in this lecture, we are going to discuss past tense, the concept, and some common mistakes. I am Ravi Bhatt, and let's now move on towards the course outline. First, we'll discuss tenses, what, why, definition, importance, types, and the wrong usage. We'll specifically cover past tense in English along with variations like simple past, past continuous, past perfect, and past perfect continuous, followed by some discussion about the types of sentences in English like declarative, interrogative, imperative, exclamatory, affirmative, and negative. Now, examples of sentences in different variations that we are going to discuss, as in we are going to make various sentences in past tense, and we'll try to fit in the structure of how a declarative sentence would be, how an interrogative sentence would be, how an imperative sentence would be, so on and so forth, followed by some common mistakes in the use of past tense, and then some practice questions that you might encounter in your examination or otherwise. And finally, we'll end with some tips and techniques to master English tenses. So, let's begin the lecture. First, what are tenses? The word tense is used to denote a characteristic of the verb in a sentence. The tense of a verb is used to depict the time in which a specific event is taking place. So, as we all know, in English language, tenses becomes extremely crucial for two reasons. Number one, for giving the much needed clarity about when an a work or perhaps which time reference a person is referring to. And if we jumble up sentences, the entire meaning of a sentence might go haywire. So it says a tense is a form of the verb that allows you to express time. A tense of the verb tells us when an event or something existed or when a person did something. There are three main types of tenses, that is past, present, and future, out of which we are thoroughly going to discuss past tense today. Now, here are some of the definitions of past tense. Now, Oxford Learner's Dictionary defines tense as any of the forms of a verb that may be used to show the time of the action or state expressed by the verb. The Merriam-Webster defines tense as a distinction of form in a verb to express distinctions of time or duration of the action or state it denotes. And then Collins Dictionary says the tense of a verb group is its form, which usually shows whether you are referring to past, present, or future time. And what Cambridge says about tense is any of the forms of a verb which shows the time at which an action happened. This might help you understand what exactly tense is. Dear students, this lecture is being recorded from the perspective of a novice, as in, even if a student who does not have any idea about what tense is goes through this video, they will have a fair idea about what tense is. So, we'll start with very basics of tenses and then we'll move on to discuss specifics and advanced concepts. So, that said, let's move on. Why are tenses important? So, tenses are often considered to be the backbone and the most fundamental element of the English language. Without tense, everything seems to be absurd. Tenses help you describe actions that take place at different times. It helps to give clarity to your context and the information you are trying to convey. It also allows you to build complex sentence structures. So, if you want to be able to convey information clearly and promptly, you should know all the 12 tenses and how they are used. And that is why tenses are extremely important. Now, like I said, in English grammar, there are three main tenses, and they're each further classified into four different forms, which sums up to 12 total tenses in English language. There are three basic tenses are there, along with four variations each. So the three tenses in English are present, past, and future. And the four different forms of those three basic tenses are simple tense, continuous tense, perfect tense, and perfect continuous tense. And the 12 tenses in English are as follows: simple present tense, present continuous tense, present perfect tense, and present perfect continuous tense. All right. For the past, we have simple past, past continuous, past perfect, and past perfect continuous. Now, these are the four tenses that we are going to discuss today at length. And for future, it is simple future, future continuous, future perfect, and future perfect continuous tense. Now, when it comes to past tense, let's first discuss some of the wrong use of past tenses. Now, if you can look at the screen, say you're sitting in a job interview. Now, wrong. I was graduated from the university next year. The correct would be I graduated from the university next year. Now, the error is uses using passive voice incorrectly with the past verb. That is, graduated is an intransitive verb and it will never take was. There are two types of verbs, transitive and intransitive, and graduate being an intransitive verb would never take was with it. In real life scenario, the interviewer may wonder whether the degree was earned or if something else happened to the person, leading to an awkward follow-up questions or an awkward situation. Moreover, this will certainly tell the interviewer that you have a, you might not really command a good control over English language. So, one common mistake. Another one, say you're checking in for your flight and you said, I lost my passport, so I can't board yesterday. Whereas the correct, grammatically correct version would be, I lost my passport, so I couldn't board yesterday. Okay. Now, what you have done, you've mixed the past tense lost with the present one, can't. Okay. Now, this could be like, a kind of timeline confusion. Okay. So when you say lost my passport, you're using simple past. You have to use the word could, that is past of can. There is one thing named parallelism in tenses, that is the verb and the subject, or perhaps verb all through the sentence must carry the same form. Okay. For example, if you are referring to past, then the verbs all through the sentence or the paragraph that you are writing will have to be in past tense only. Okay. So here in a real life scenario, the airline staff may think that the problem is ongoing when in fact it was resolved, causing unnecessary panic or delays. Now, one more scenario could have been a weather report where someone says it is rained tomorrow. Now, how awkward does it sound, and how awkward in reality it is? Okay, because what it does, it mixes present continuous with past tense while referring to the future. So when it says it is rain tomorrow, it is grammatically incorrect. The correct would be it will rain tomorrow. Okay. Now people would wonder if the forecaster has a time machine or is just very confused. Okay. It will rain tomorrow or it rained tomorrow. Something like that. Okay. Now say one more scenario at a hospital. He didn't went to the doctor. Okay. Now, this is a very common mistake. Okay. Do, does, did. Always remember that. Do, does, did. They're always followed by the first form of the verb, the base form of the verb. So, do, does, did. Okay. Will always be followed by the base form, the first form, that is go. So, I will always say, he didn't go to the doctor. Okay. Now, using the past form went after didn't, which already marks past tense. All right. So, a nurse may be confused in a real life scenario about whether the patient saw the doctor or not. Okay. So, it will be, I didn't go to the doctor. Say you are in a business meeting. All right. Now, wrong would be, we was discussed this in the last meeting. Okay. Okay. We'll never ever use was. Okay. We discussed this in the last meeting. Okay. The error would be incorrect subject verb agreement and tense. Was is not used with we and discussed already marks the past. Okay. And in the real life scenario, again, it might create a confusion where your teammates may get confused about whether this is a new information or a follow up. Okay. So let's discuss one such scenario. For example, you're working, okay, you're at your workplace and you say, I meet the client yesterday afternoon. Okay. So this again happens to be a clear cut grammatical error. The correct would be I met the client yesterday afternoon. So the error would be that this uses present tense, that is meet, to refer to a past action, which is incorrect when a specific time is mentioned. Okay. And in a real life scenario, a manager may misunderstand and think the meeting is today or still upcoming, which can lead to miscommunication or duplicated efforts. So these are some of the wrong uses of past tense specifically, which might create confusion. And to overcome these mistakes, we need to have a strong command over tenses. Otherwise, here and there, it might create an odd situation. Okay. Now, since we all know the past tense is one of the most basic tenses in English that signifies an action that had happened in the past. We use past tense to talk about something that happened in the past or that had happened in the past from one point to another. All right. Now, the past tense form of a verb, as the term suggests, can be used to speak about or represent any event or action that already happened in the past. One important point you have to keep in mind is that a number of verbs, when used in the past tense, do not follow the general rule of adding ed to the end of the verb to form the past tense. Okay. Now let's look at some of the examples. Okay. Let's look at some of the examples. Marcel finished his speech. Nandini and Padmini were talking about you. Or say, Salim had found the keys before his parents found out about it. Or say, Selena found out that Trinita had not been taking her medicines for the last few weeks. So these are various variations of the sentences that were spoken in past tense. Now, let's begin with the variations of past tense. Like I told you that like every sentence, sorry, like every tense, even the past tense has four variation. That is simple past, past perfect, past continuous, and past perfect continuous. Okay. So now let's begin with simple past tense. Okay. The structural formula is subject plus verb, ed form, or verb in the past tense plus rest of the sentence. Examples: I met, Nathan met me at the park. Okay. Or Anmol went home. These are the examples of simple past. Now, since we know that there are some types of sentences in English, now what we are going to do, we are going to discuss this variation of past tense in some of the sentences that we know, exist in English. Now, since we know that there are these six types of sentences, okay, in English language primarily, that are divided into two categories. First, by function and purpose, we have declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory sentences. And on whether they state something that is true or not true, that is affirmative and negative. Now, declarative sentences make statements. Interrogative sentences ask questions. Imperative sentences, on the other hand, they give command or request. And exclamatory sentences, they express strong emotions, like the word suggests, exclamation. Okay. Now, when it comes to the other category, on whether they state something that is true or not, affirmative sentences, they assert something is true, while negative statements assert something is not true. Affirmative sentences express agreement or affirmation, which, while negative sentences expresses denial or contradiction. All right. Always remember that an affirmative sentence makes a positive statement. All right. Agreeing with or asserting the truth of something. It will never contain any negative words like not, no, or never. For example, if I say the sky is blue, all right, now that's an affirmative statement. Whereas a negative statement, it denies or contradicts a statement, indicating something is not true or not happening. Okay. Now, typically, a negative statement includes words like not, no, never, or other negative terms. For example, the sky is not blue, like this. So, these are the types of sentences. Now, what we are going to do, we are going to practice simple past tense into these various combinations. For example, by function or purpose, say a declarative sentence. Now, for example, this all is in simple past. Some of these does not take simple past, but for the sake of explaining, we have taken some variations. Now, by function or purpose, she visited her grandmother last week. They watched a movie last night. He finished the project on time. I traveled to Kerala in December. Declarative sentences. Then we have interrogative sentences. That interrogates, that questions something. Did you complete the assignment? What did she say to you? Did they enjoy the trip? Or say, when did he call you? All that these are in simple past and they are interrogative sentences. Now, when it comes to imperative sentences, we must know that imperatives are usually in base form. Okay. But here, what we have done, we've framed indirect or implied uses for stylistic or conversational emphasis. All right. Generally, imperatives are not there in simple past, but for the sake of putting emphasis, we have framed some implied conversations. So a person says, remember what I told you yesterday, or tell him you already explained it. Don't forget we agreed on that yesterday, or think about how we solved it before. Okay, so that is imperative sentences. Now, exclamatory sentences, again, that ends with an exclamation mark. What a beautiful song she sang, or how quickly he ran the race, or say, what a mess they made at the party, or oh no, I missed the train. Now, here you must know that if even if a sentence is starting from what or how, okay, now this is not an interrogative sentence because here they are not asking a question, rather, they are making a point. So when it says, what a beautiful song she sang, or how quickly he ran the race, and they're all followed by an exclamation mark. Now, not a question mark. Had there been a question mark at the end, things would have been different. In fact, the question formation would be slightly different, but here it is followed by an exclamation mark. So these are all exclamatory sentences. Okay. Then affirmative sentences by function or purpose. We have affirmative sentences. So these are positive statements. For example, she wrote a letter to her friend, or we danced all night. He bought a new phone yesterday. They cleaned the entire house. All right. So, what are these? These are affirmative sentences. And the last is negative sentences. Okay. So, it is like, I did not like the movie. She didn't go to the school yesterday. They did not finish their work. He did not eat breakfast. Okay. These are negative statements. Now, let's come to past continuous tense. Now, the structural formula is subject plus helping verb, was verb, plus main verb in the ing form, plus rest of the sentence. So, past continuous tense is generally used to refer any ongoing action of the past. Okay. So, if I'm referring to past and I'm referring to a period of time when any action was ongoing, there we would use what? Past continuous tense. That's the logic behind it. For example, Tarun was watching a movie. So I'm referring to a time in the past when Tarun was in the middle of watching a movie. An action was going on. The implied action was going on at that point in time in the past. Okay. Or they were planning a birthday party for their friend. All right. And the structure will always be like this: subject plus auxiliary verb. Helping verbs are also known as auxiliary verbs. Okay, helping verb was verb plus main verb in ing form plus rest of the sentence. Now, again, for these types of sentences, let's see some declarative sentences in past continuous. She was reading a novel when I called. So when I called, she was doing an action. She was middle of an action. And what was that action? That action was of reading the novel. So she was reading a novel when I called. They were watching TV all evening. He was sleeping during the lecture. And I was working on my assignment last night. Okay, so I'm referring to a specific action of the past. All right, specific action of the past is being referred to. Now, the next thing is by function or purpose, interrogative. Now, what are interrogative sentences? Now, interrogative sentences would always ask a question. So let's see what interrogative sentences are here for this. Were you studying when the lights went out? And what was she doing at 9 p.m.? Were they playing football in the rain? And was he driving when you called? So the reference, again, we are asking a question, but we are asking a question with reference to past when a work was going on. Okay, like was he driving when you called? So these are interrogative sentences. Again, imperatives don't usually take the past continuous form directly. Okay, but for conversational expressions or indirect commands, okay, here we have made some of the imperative sentences. For example, remember you were helping me yesterday. Or don't say you weren't listening, you were. Or say, let's not forget what we were planning. Or tell them they were shouting too loudly. Okay, so these all are imperative sentences. Okay, now exclamatory sentences by function or purpose. Okay, say what a scene they were creating, or how loudly he was singing, or say what a story she was telling, or say, oh no, I was just leaving when it started to rain. So these are all exclamatory sentences. They tell a emotion. An emotion is coming out. How loudly she was singing. Like I told you, these are not questions, right? Rather, these are exclamations. Okay. These are emotions or feelings coming out. Fine. Now, the next is affirmative by purpose or function. Now, I was talking to my friend on the phone, or say she was cooking dinner when I arrived, or say we were walking through the park and they were studying for the test together. These are what? Affirmative sentences. All right. Now, by function or purpose, negative. Okay. Now, I wasn't paying attention in the class and he wasn't feeling well yesterday, or they weren't playing outside in the rain. She wasn't working on the project then. Okay. So these all are negative statements. Now, tenses, we come to the next variation, that is past perfect. Now, always remember that when a work has recently been finished, with reference to present, we use present perfect. However, when the work was finished, when we are talking about a work that was finished with reference to past, we use past perfect tense. Okay. The structural formula is subject plus helping verb plus past participle of the main verb plus the rest of the sentence along with time frame. Examples: Tony had eaten his dinner before we reached the venue. Or say, the train had left before Mayur reached the station. All right. So here we go with the variations. Okay. Types of sentences. Now, first, declarative sentences. She had finished her homework before dinner. They had left the party when we arrived. I had never seen such a beautiful sunset. And he had written the report by the time manager asked for it. Now, here's a pro tip for all of you, dear students. Most of the times, whenever we use past perfect, we would have to use the helping verb had. Now, if you very carefully look at these three sentences, uh, three out of these four sentences, I must say, first, second, and fourth, there are two actions happening. Okay. For example, the first sentence, she had finished her homework before dinner. So there are two actions happening. Say she is a girl named Andrea. So Andrea did two actions. She ate dinner and she finished her homework. Now, which action did she do first? So as the sentence says, she had finished her homework before dinner. So before she had finished her homework and after she had her dinner. Now, for the first action, whenever in scenarios like this, for past of the past, that is for the action that had happened first, we will always use present perfect, and the second action will always come in simple past. Okay. For example, in the second statement, two actions had been done. Some people had left the party and some people arrived. Okay. So those who have arrived, okay, what they are saying, that the other party had left before they arrived. So they had left the party when we arrived. So again, like we see in this particular statement, two actions had happened. Action one was someone's arrival or someone's leaving. Sorry, action one was someone's leaving. Past of the past, someone's leaving, someone's departure. Action two, someone's arrival. So for past of the past, present past perfect. That is had. And for the other action, the next action we use simple past. They had left the party when we arrived. Next, I had never seen such a beautiful sunset, or say, he had written the report by the time the manager asked for it. So, always remember that for past of the past, we would always use past perfect, that is the auxiliary verb had. And for the other action, we would prefer simple past, that is the third form of the verb. Now, moving ahead, by function or purpose, interrogative, had you ever traveled abroad before 2020? Or what had she said before the meeting ended? Or had they finished the work before the deadline? Or why had he called so late at night? Okay, so these are some of the interrogative sentences where we are asking questions. Now, imperative sentences. Now, again, like I said in the past, in the first two examples, imperatives don't normally use the past perfect tense directly. Okay, however, we framed some of the indirect commands or conversational expressions for, giving some of the examples. So it says, remember what you had promised me, or say, don't forget you had already agreed, or say, tell me he had missed the opportunity, or let her know she had already been informed. Okay, so these are imperative sentences. Now let's come to exclamatory sentences, which says, what a mistake he had done, or how much they had changed over the years, and what a journey we had experienced. What an experience, like this. Or, oh no, I had completely forgotten her birthday. All right. So these are exclamatory sentences. And then we have this category of affirmative sentences. Okay. So affirmative sentences like this: we had reached the station before the train departed, or she had prepared everything by morning, or I had already eaten when they arrived, or they had learned the lesson well. These are all positive statements, affirmative statements, affirming something. And on the contrary, we have here the examples of negative statements. So, negative statements: she had not visited the museum before, they hadn't completed the form correctly, I had not heard the news until yesterday, and he hadn't studied for the test. All right, so these are some negative statements. Now we have these past perfect continuous tense. The last tense that we are going to discuss today, the last variation that we are going to discuss today, rather. So the structural formula is subject plus had been plus verb in ing form plus the rest of the sentence. Okay. Now the examples are Sharan had been practicing the guitar when the teacher called for him. Or Rahul had already been playing cricket for 8 years when that unfortunate accident happened. So very often we see the adverb of frequency like already uh, placed there. Now, when do we use past perfect continuous tense? Past perfect continuous tense is generally used when we are referring to an ongoing action in the past with reference to some other action in the past. Now, if you see in the first example and in the second example, we are referring to one particular action of the past along with one action that was going on for a while. For example, what was Sharan doing? So Sharan had been practicing the guitar when the teacher called for him. Okay, Sharan had been practicing the guitar. Okay, and he had been practicing guitar for a while when teacher called for him. Okay, so we are referring to two actions of the past, out of which one is ongoing from an indefinite time to one point in time in the past, and the other action had happened. Okay, so let's look at some of the examples to further give you clarity on the matter. Again, we'll take a look at these different sentence formations so as to give you some examples of how you can make sentences in present perfect continuous. Okay, now let's see some of the examples of declarative sentences. First, she had been working on the project for 3 hours before the power went out. Okay, so say some female employee of a company, she came and she had been working for a specific project for 3 hours, and after 3 hours, suddenly the power went out. So, like I said, we're referring to any action, any ongoing action in the past that was not completed, and some other action that had happened. So, there is an action of power going out, okay, and there was an action ongoing of a person that has been working on the project. So, she had been working on the project for 3 years before the power went out. They had been living in Delhi for 10 years before they moved to Mumbai. I had been feeling unwell all day, and he had been practicing the guitar regularly before the concert. Now, these are declarative sentences. Now, we have interrogative sentences, okay, which asks question. So, had you been studying before the exam? Sorry, had you been studying for the exam before the power cut? Or what had she been doing when you arrived? Or perhaps say, had they been waiting for a long time? Or perhaps, why had he been shouting so loudly? These are interrogative sentences. Now, imperative sentences. Now, again, like I said, imperatives don't occur in this particular tense, okay? But some of the conversational styles imperatives, okay, can be framed, what we've done here for the sake of example. So these are some of the imperatives that are framed using past perfect continuous tense ideas. All right. Now, remind him he had been making progress before he gave up. Or say, tell her she had been doing well until she changed her method. The next one, don't ignore the fact that we had been trying to help her. Or say, let them know they had been improving before the setback. These are some of the sentence variations from imperative, but then directly this tense does not take imperatives. Now, exclamation, some of the exclamatory sentences like how hard she had been working before the deadline. The next one, what a storm they had been facing all night. Or how long he had been suffering in silence. And what a beautiful song she had been singing for the mic failed. Okay. Now, again, these are some of the variations too of exclamatory sentences. Now, on the basis of function or purpose, I had been reading the book for hours, or say, they had been playing football before it started raining, or perhaps she had been waiting for the bus since morning, or say, we had been discussing this topic for a long time. All right. Now, the last uh, type, that these are negative sentences. That is, I had not been sleeping well lately, or he hadn't been attending classes regularly, or they had not been speaking to each other, or say, she hadn't been practicing the piano before the recital. All right. So these are some of the variations of past perfect continuous tense in negatives. All right. So, dear students, these are the four variations of past tenses and some of the examples of various types of sentences and how they can be made using these four variations. Okay. Now, let's come to some of the common mistakes that people would often commit while uh, making sentences in the past tense. While most of the rules are mechanical and you can follow them quite easily, it becomes extremely important for us to know that people often tend to commit mistakes. Now, let's see what could possibly be these common mistakes with past tense. So, now we are going to discuss some four or five common mistakes, okay, and then we'll practice some questions. Now, first, common mistakes with past tense. Point number one, using simple past tense with the past participle. For most verbs, we should not use the simple past tense form with the past participle, as the result turns out to be grammatically incorrect. Okay. For example, I had ate at McDonald's yesterday is grammatically incorrect, as had is the past participle of have and ate is the simple past of eat. Okay. So I had ate at McDonald's yesterday. No, I had eaten. Okay. Okay. So the past tense verb had. Okay. And a present participle verb form eaten. All right. So using simple past tense with the past participle, it does not work. Okay. So it should always be I had eaten at McDonald's yesterday. I had driven their car yesterday. Okay. I had gone to the party yesterday, like this. Okay. So that's first mistake. The second mistake, in incorrect use of auxiliary verbs. Like I know auxiliary verbs or helping verbs play a crucial role in most of the sentence formations. Now, let's see what it says. Another common error in the past tense is the incorrect or unnecessary addition of auxiliary verbs before simple past tense verbs. Okay. Example, I should have went to the bakery last night. Now, how odd this sounds. Now, this sentence is grammatically incorrect because the auxiliary verb have is used before the simple past tense of go. Okay. So the correct form would be I should have gone to the bakery last night. I should have gone to the bakery last night. Always remember to use an auxiliary verb with a past participle and not with the simple past tense form of a verb. So I should have gone to the bakery last night. Okay. So we use auxiliary verb with the past participle, not with the simple past tense. Okay. I should have went to the bakery last night is grammatically incorrect. All right. Next, simple past tense versus past continuous tense. Yes, again, something that is extremely important. Now, when referring to an old habit or things you used to do regularly in the past, simple past tense should be used. If, for example, I was cycling to church every day for 4 hours is incorrect. Now, let's see the next one. Simple past tense versus past continuous tense. Now, again, something very important. When referring to an old habit or things you used to do regularly in the past, simple past tense should be used. For example, I was cycling to church every day for 4 years is incorrect. Okay, is extremely incorrect. Now, since the subject mentions a definite period of time while talking about an old habit, so I cycled to church every day for 4 hours. Okay, so it will be simple past. It will be in simple past. I cycled to church every day for 4 years. I was cycling to church every day for 4 years is grammatically incorrect. All right. That's the difference between the use of simple past and past continuous tense. Now, however, before we move on, the sentence says that since the subject mentions a definite period of time while talking about an old habit, had this not been a definite period of time, it would be very easily be going correctly with past continuous tense. However, if not, then it will be simple past. Now, present perfect tense or simple past tense, which one to use? For example, the sentence says, I didn't do the dishes yet. Now, it might sound weird. That's because it is an error in past tense. Now, this sentence mentions an event that should have already been done but hasn't been completed yet. In such cases of mentioning recent past events, you should use the present perfect tense instead of simple past tense. Okay. Now, the correct form would be I haven't done the dishes yet. Okay. Now, here it why this happens, because say for example, when it comes to the sentence I didn't do the dishes yet, we are mentioning an event that should have already been done, okay, but hasn't been completed yet. Okay, so there are cases where we'll be mentioning recent events, okay, recent past events, and where present perfect tense is used rather than simple past tense verb. Okay, that is not used. So the correct grammatical variation would be that I haven't done the dishes yet. Now, moving on, the last example, the last error that we often commit. Now, simple past tense for completed events. For example, you know what it says? Often people use past continuous tense like I was calling her last night to address events or activities that had already been completed. Okay. Now, this is grammatically incorrect, as events, activities that have already been completed in the past, okay, should be using simple past tense. For example, therefore, I called her last night is grammatically correct form of the sentence. Okay. However, if you say I was calling her, it would be fine. You've given a time frame here, okay, which very clearly says that the action is long completed, and then you're using past continuous tense. That would make this sentence grammatically unacceptable. Okay, it will be grammatically wrong. Now, though the person you're referring to might understand what you're trying to say, but it would not be according to the syntactical rules of English grammar. So, when you say I was calling her last night, okay, it is grammatically wrong. The correct variation would have been I called her last night. Okay, so we always use simple past for completed events. All right. Now, since we have done all these common mistakes, we have done some basic formulations. Now it is the time for some questions, some practice questions. Now, you can either pause the video and read the question and take your answer, or you can, just follow along with me for the correct answer and the explanation of the wrong options. Now, question number one is, you arrive late to the class and the teacher asks, why are you late? So your reply would be A, I have missed the bus. B, I missed the bus. C, I missed the bus. And D, I had missed the bus. So correct answer would be C, I missed the bus. Explanation. The teacher's question refers to a completed action just before now. The simple past is appropriate because missed expresses a finished action that explains your present situation. Okay. So option A, have missed, is present perfect and it doesn't suit the direct question. Now option B, miss is incorrect tense. And option D, had missed, suggests a prior past event and would need another past action to follow it. So had missed will now not come. Like if you remember, I told you had, like, in this term refers to, is used for past of the past. Okay. Now the correct answer is C, I missed the bus. Now next question. Last summer, I dashed to Germany for a holiday. Now I had gone, I was going, I went, and I have gone. You must be guessing the correct answer here. The correct is C, that is went. So the last summer, like we said, is a clear finished time reference. So simple past tense is used for completed actions at a specific time in the past. A, had gone would be used if compared to another past action. Okay. However, there's no second action here. Was going suggests an interrupted or ongoing action, which is not the case here. Okay, it is clearly a finished action, a clear time reference of the past. And have gone is present perfect, which connects us to the present. Okay, but here the time reference is very clearly of the past. So the correct answer would be went. I went to Germany. All right. Now, tenses third. Your friend calls you at 10 p.m. and asks, what were you doing at 9:30? Now your reply would be, I read a book, I was reading a book, I had read a book, and I have read a book. Here, the correct answer would be, I was reading a book. Okay, because your friend was asking you, let's look at the question again. Your friend calls you at 10 p.m. and is making a reference to what you were doing at 9:30 p.m. Okay. Now, since the answer was I was reading a book, so why? Because the friend asks what was in progress at a specific time in the past. Okay, 30 minutes before your friend called, what were you doing? So the past continuous tense would fit in here. That is was reading. Okay, because what it does, it shows an ongoing activity at that time in the past. Okay, an uninterrupted activity or an activity that was going on in the past. Okay, so the correct answer would be I was reading a book. Option A shows a completed action, whereas option C and D in this case refers to actions completed before that time or recently, not what was happening during the time that was referred to by your friend. Okay, so I was reading a book. Now, moving ahead, when I arrived, they dash dinner. Now, when I arrived, they ate dinner, they were eating dinner, they had eaten dinner, and they have eaten dinner. Okay, so they were eating. Okay, now why here it is they were eating dinner? Because that action was ongoing at the specific past time, that is when I arrived. All right, now past continuous. Okay, it would not be used there. The past continuous formula is was verb plus verb ing form, because it shows an action in progress at a point in the past. Okay, a ate would show a finished action. Okay, but we need an ongoing action. Okay, had eaten means they finished eating before I arrived, which changes the meaning. Okay, it would rather change the meaning altogether. And have eaten is present perfect, it's not past perfect. Okay, so they were eating dinner. All right, now moving on to the next tense, next question. You went to a railway station and found out the train was gone. How do you explain what happened? Now you reached a railway station and you found out that the train, the train that you have to, the train you have to catch. Okay. So the train is already gone. Now someone asks you to explain the situation. How would you explain the situation, or how would you rather explain what had happened? So guys, if you remember, while we were reading past perfect, I had categorically told you that whenever in a sentence you refer to two actions of the past, okay, you clearly refer to two actions that had happened in the past, and you have to explain both of those actions in one sentence. Then you have to understand first very clearly the meaning of the sentence, so that you can very well figure out that what were the two actions that had happened. And then after figuring out what were those two actions, you have to understand which action happened first, and then which action happened later on. So the action that had happened first here in this particular sentence, two actions happened. Action number one was that the train had left the station, past of the past. And the second is your arrival in the railway station. So, going by what we can understand, what we could comprehend from the sentence is that you planned a journey for a specific train, but you got late, okay, to reach the railway station, and hence, before your arrival, the train had left the station. That means you missed the train. Now, while we understand this particular sentence, we also understand that there are two actions that had happened. Action number one, past of the past. Before your arrival, the train had gone. So, first action is train's departure. The second action was your arrival. So, as a rule, for action that had happened first in the past, that is past of the past, train's departure would take past perfect, that is auxiliary verb had, and the second action would take simple past. That's the rule. So now, after this particular explanation, now let's come to this question again. You went to the railway station and found out the train was gone. How do you explain what happened? A. I didn't reach the station on time. I wasn't reaching the station on time. I had missed the train, or I have missed the train. So it is C. I had missed the train. And you can read here, you are explaining a past result by referring to a prior past action. Okay. So the past perfect had missed is perfect here to show the earlier action relative to another past event. So I had missed the train. All right, it will always be I had missed the train. So option A, simple past, is okay, but doesn't clearly show sequence. Option B is incorrect use of past continuous. Option D, present perfect, doesn't suit the past situation already completed. So it is I had missed the train. Next one, he dashed all the documents before the meeting started. He dash all the documents before the meeting started. Now, what I've explained just now can very well be implemented here. Now, if you observe very closely, there are two actions happening. Okay, for example, say there's a person named Rakesh. Now, Rakesh has joined the company as an intern, and he's expected to attend a meeting, okay, of the board of directors. Now, the board of directors had given him some, say, documents to read before the meeting so that he can brief them about the agenda. Now, there are two actions happening here. First action is that Rakesh had read the document, and the second action is of the starting of the meeting. Now, since two actions are happening, now from the outset of the sentence, it could very well and very clearly be comprehended that Rakesh had already read all the documents before the meeting began. or before the meeting started. So there are two actions happening. The first action, say the two actions without any order, Rakesh reading the document and the meeting's beginning. Now, if we go by the chronology, so the first action that had happened was Rakesh had read all the documents. The second action is the starting of the meeting. So, if we were to explain for past of the past, we would always use had. Okay, that is past perfect. So, Rakesh had read all the document before the meeting started. All right. Now, see, had read. The correct option is B, had read. Explanation: two past actions, reading documents first and meeting started second. Past perfect, that is had plus past participle, is used for the action that happened earlier in the past. Okay, so read simple past wouldn't clearly show which action happened first. Okay, since there are two clear actions that had happened. Reads is present tense, that is again incorrect. Okay, was reading shows an action in progress, not completion. Okay, so the correct answer would be he had read all the documents before the meeting started. Now, next question. You're telling a friend how tired you felt after working for a long time. Which sentence fits best? A, I was working for 5 hours. B, I worked for 5 hours. C, I had been working for 5 hours. And D, I have worked for 5 hours. Okay. So, which sentence would fit in best? See, I had been working for 5 hours. Okay. Because if we look at the uh, sentence, you're referring to an ongoing action in the past with reference to a particular time. Okay. So, explanation: this tense emphasizes duration and connects a past ongoing event with a point when it ended. Okay, that is, you felt tired. So, option A and B do not show the connection between action and its result, whereas option D is present perfect and clearly doesn't suit a past situation. So, the correct option would be I had been working for 5 hours. Now, by the time the train arrived, we dashed at the station for 2 hours. So, by the time train arrived, we waited, we had waited, we were waiting, or we had been waiting. Now, again, like I said, here in this particular reference, one action of train's arrival is there. However, before train's arrival, there was an action that was going on. For example, the train was scheduled to arrive at 12 and it arrived at 12 noon, whereas I arrived at station at 10 a.m. So when train had arrived, I had already been waiting for the station for 2 hours. So what I'm doing here, I'm referring to a past action. Okay, I'm referring to a past action with reference to a ongoing action of the past. Okay, so let's see what is the explanation. I had been waiting. So the sentence talks about the duration of an action up to a point in the past. Okay. For example, that means for 2 hours before the train arrived. So the past perfect continuous tense, that is had been plus verb ing, expresses duration before something else in the past. For example, okay, I had been waiting for the train already for 2 hours. All right. Now, why other options won't fit in? Because waited is simple past and doesn't show the duration properly. Had waited shows completion but doesn't focus on the continuing action. Whereas were waiting is past continuous but doesn't capture the idea of how long. All right. So, guys, these are some of the practice questions of different variations of past tense that you might come across. Now, finally, some tips and tricks to master English tenses. Always keep a clear mind and be ready to unlearn and relearn. Understand what tenses are and how they are used. There are particular patterns in which each tense is conjugated. Okay, helping catch that pattern would certainly help you. Okay, now go through as many examples as you find, practice as much as you can, and you will get to know exactly how each tense works out in different context. Okay. However, there are a few exceptions. Okay. You just have to go through them keenly and apply them. It will surely take time, but you'll be able to master it with your determination and continuous effort. Also, to gain a first-hand experience on how to use tenses, you can watch movies, videos, or even series. Okay. And in that case, unintentionally, even without your knowledge, you'll be able to develop your vocabulary and learn so many different sentence structures that use various tense forms. All right. So this is all about past tense, and hope you have enjoyed today's lecture, my dear friends. Thank you.